Election day. God only knows what's going to happen around Thanksgiving tables this year, with the election being 3 weeks before. I'll never forget, a couple years ago, Miss Pat was talking about All in the Family, Archie Bunker, probably iconically one of the most politically incorrect characters in all of television. And she was saying what a necessity he was, because if you really watched the show and how inappropriate he was, really he was always the butt of the joke. No matter who he's insulting, it was showing his ignorance to things. Whenever I do a joke that's shocking, people go, before they laugh. But then I think everybody in the room kind of understanding in that moment, this is comedy, and then laughing after that. That's the best part for me. That's basically the whole show of All in the Family. Coffee talk. Guys, I don't know if you just caught my morning yawn, but I just had my morning yawn with my cup of coffee for Coffee Talk with Cannistraci. Happy Monday, everybody. This is Monday, November 4th. And that means tomorrow is Tuesday, November 5th, which is Election Day. And on that note, that is the only thing I want to say about that. No, guys, in all seriousness, I mean, I know the hype. I know what everybody's thinking. I know what everybody's feeling around this election. Maybe around every election, but these last few, at least for me, seemed the most intense, and we seemed the most divided. Most divided with friends, family, who's not talking to each other. The holidays are coming up. God only knows what's going to happen around Thanksgiving tables this year, with the election being 3 weeks before. So I just kind of wanted to touch upon something related but not related to it, which is like the political correctness of things, especially in comedy. I'm not specifically saying what side. I think it's both sides that get offended by things that people say on stage. And I just don't think there is any place for something like political correctness in comedy. So usually, and what I've loved about making that statement that I just made here right now to you listeners, is that when I say that on stage, no matter where I am, in between New York and California, that almost always gets an applause break. And I feel like 4 years ago, I didn't feel that. 4 years ago, I felt really a lot more cautious of what I was saying on stage. In fact, this year, I performed with Paul Verzi at the Netflix Is a Joke Comedy Festival. And while Paul was on stage, I kind of closed my eyes and was listening to him and listening to the reaction from people in California at the comedy show, thinking a couple years ago, if I would have closed my eyes, I would have never guessed I was in California. I think that everyone now really realizes the role that comedians have in making light of situations and making things relatable. And when it's done right, there really is no place for censorship on a platform like ours. I'll never forget, a couple years ago, Miss Pat was talking about All in the Family, which, if you guys know the show All in the Family, Archie Bunker, probably iconically one of the most politically incorrect characters in all of television. And she was saying what a necessity he was, because if you really watched the show and how inappropriate he was, really he was always the butt of the joke. No matter who he's insulting or how funny it was, the way he was insulting them, it was showing his ignorance to things. And he was the one that we were laughing at, not necessarily what he was saying. Yes, it was shocking, right? Whenever I do a joke that's shocking, people go, before they laugh. I get that, that little bit of, oh my God, did she just... But then I think everybody in the room kind of understanding in that moment, this is comedy, and then laughing after that. That's the best part for me. The best part is if I can make you go, and then you laugh. That means I've said, oh my, I've done something. I've triggered you, not even in a bad way, but in a way that makes you go mind blown. Wow, did she? But you recognizing that it's art, that it is an art form, that it is something I just did to make you laugh. That's a great feeling. That's basically the whole show of All in the Family. So when I think they were censoring what what shows to even take off television and things. And of course, All in the Family came into that topic of conversation. I remember Miss Pat being like, that is what comedy is. And even her saying that we're ruining the art form here. You're ruining comedy if you're censoring what we have to say. I got to be honest. There are jokes or things I want to say that I don't want to get misinterpreted. So I pull back, even if I'm on stage, even if it's just improvising, if I'm doing crowd work and I see something that's so funny that I could say that would be so funny, but I just pause. And even if I do say it, it probably doesn't come out as quickly or as funny as it would have if I just would have felt free to say it. Now listen, I'm not saying that we don't evolve over time or that we don't look back into the past and say, wow, those are mistakes we never want to make again. Or this is something I realized I'm more informed about, that I should be more conscious of people's feelings. Of course I feel that way on so many different, subject matters in life. But again, I come to you as a comedian. I know this podcast, I don't come to you as a comic. I kind of just did this because you guys were so receptive to me online from the words and phrases I used and the from my comedy. And I felt like you guys were sharing so many of your personal stories with me on my social media platforms that I wanted to kind of give that back to you and let you know who I was, where I come from, what my thoughts are, what my childhood was like, which is why I started this whole podcast. So I just feel like I am still a comedian, even if I am here with a morning cup of coffee talking to you about anxiety or my childhood or whatever subject matter comes to mind for that day. It doesn't mean that I'm an artist, right? I'm a writer. And it's like telling Picasso what he should paint. Now, I'm not comparing some of my jokes to a Picasso painting, but I am. It's my art. It's my form of expression. And let me tell you something. I just performed a couple weeks ago at a comedy club, and people who had not bought tickets to see me but bought tickets that night because they needed a night out, I happened to be the headlining comedian there, came over to me after the show, and I knew something was up when this woman came over to me because she kind of looked like she had been crying, not at my show, but she had looked like she had been through something. And maybe the empath in me noticed that right away. And she came over to me and she grabbed my hand and she said, I didn't know who you were before tonight. She said, but I'm going to follow you forever. And I was like, whoa. And she said, my father just died. And this is the first time my mother, my sister, and I have been out. And we bought tickets out of desperation just to be like, let's. She goes, not even thinking that we would laugh the way we laughed tonight. And at one point I laughed so hard it made me go, it's going to be okay. Like I never even thought that I would feel this level of an intensity of this emotion again. Which isn't to say that when she was leaving, she wasn't still upset or still dealing with her grief, but for that brief moment of time, she forgot about it, or she realized that there were going to be better days ahead and that life was going to go on. That's from a 90-minute comedy show. It's from 90 minutes of, and I was, it's so funny because the show she came to, I had a heckler, which I don't often get. And this one guy definitely had a bit too many. And the things I said to him were definitely off color. Like they were, in any other context, if I posted the clips of the things I said there, I would be canceled before I even was that famous. But in the context of which I responded back to this guy, the audience was so receptive to it and knew that it came from a place of me wanting them to have a good time and shut him down and be really quick and witty. And I did it without thinking about being canceled or about being scared to say it. I really was like, I don't care. This guy was ruining the night for everybody. I went at him hard, which he deserved because he was coming at me, even if he was just drunk and, that wasn't his intent. But before the club could remove him, I got to him. And, if I post those clips, which I don't think I'm ever going to, I don't know if Anatia, my producer, will ever let me post the things that I said on that show. You would think I was coming from so many different I don't know how to say it, like forms of like bias or judgment, or you would think I was not the person who I really am based off of, but it was what was called for in that moment. It was the comedy. It was the art form that audience needed. And that woman who told me that she realized life was going to be okay after it made me realize I can't be inhibited when I'm on that stage. I am not on that stage for myself. Anytime you come see me at a comedy show, I am not the most important person in that room. You are my audience. I know, I am well aware that my audience has to, some of you have to get babysitters. First of all, you leave your house. Who at our age wants to leave the house anymore? I don't. You have to leave your house. You have to buy tickets in today's economy. You have to maybe get a babysitter, maybe travel. Last week at my show, I was at the same hotel that some of my audience members were at because they had to travel 2 hours to be there and were making a night of it. They had to pay for a hotel to come see me tell these jokes. They deserve me at my best. Not me being scared that I'm going to be canceled because I've made a joke. A joke. Okay, look up the definition of a joke. So I think a comic, I think even Bill Maher or somebody did that, when he was like, can we stop censoring comedy? I mean, so many people, no matter what side they vote on, all comics, I think, are in agreement that we shouldn't be censored. But it just came into my mind because these are such crazy times. And the election is tomorrow. And although I feel this obligation or the sense of responsibility to myself, but more importantly to my audience, to not be politically correct when I'm on stage, that I felt that it was a good topic for today. So that is my 2 cents on current times that we are living in. And listen, if you disagree, I'm open to it, right? Like, you can give me a prime example of where what I'm saying doesn't apply. And if it's true, I will acknowledge it. See, that's it, guys. I'm open-minded. I know how I feel about myself. I know how I feel about my beliefs and the policies I believe in. And I'm firm with 95% of them. But I'm not ignorant to seeing another side of somebody else's opinion. And although at the end they may make a great case and I may still not agree, I'm not going to begrudge anybody for it either. I wish we could all be like that. I know that's impossible, and I love that people are so passionate about what they believe in. But it also, that with that passion comes the other side of it, which is aggression. And I just hope that no matter what happens tomorrow, that we embrace the new leader of the free world and just hope that whoever it is, like in comedy, like me, does what's best for their audience, which is every citizen of our great country, which is a great country. So, all right, everybody, this episode of Cawfee Talk with Tara Cannistraci on Monday, November 4th is finished. Cawfee Talk.